this is going to automate tasks. I don't think it's going to take away lots of people's jobs. Could say it could be my job as well, but I think it's it augments us to do our jobs more efficiently, and I think that's the overall biggest opportunity that AI gives us. It's somebody sitting alongside us. If you're the captain, and there's the co-pilot, and they're there to help you, make decisions or provide you with information, prompt you, those kinds of things. And I think that's a very good analogy for how this will work.
예, 경제의 신들과 함께하는 고품격 경제 콘텐츠로 유명한 삼프로TV가 야심차게 준비하고 이끌고 있는 코너죠. 글로벌머니토크, 전 세계의 훌륭한 투자자들과 현인들을 찾아서 그들의 인사이트를 얻어내는 시간. 오늘도 글로벌머니토크의 터줏대감이자 석가래이자 기둥이신 분을 제 옆에 모셨습니다. 중앙일보 강남규 선임기자님.
강남규입니다.
예.
오늘은 현인 구루 이거보다는 사실은 우리가 이제 최근에 이제 챗GPT를 비롯해서 이른바 생성형 인공지능, 앞으로 이제 생성형 AI라고 보겠습니다. 생성형 AI가 저게 돈이 될까? 돈이 얼마나 될까 그러는데 여러 가지 예측 시나리오 가운데서 사실은 그럴듯해서 구체적인 데이터를 전망치를 숫자를 제시해서 제가 이제 이 애널리스트를 좀 했습니다. 패이션스 S&P 글로벌 마켓 인텔리전스 사실 금융정보 회사로서는 세계적인 회사죠.
예, 거기에 인공지능 담당 애널리스트예요.
인공지능 담당 패이션스. 그래서 사실 그 보고서 내용을 구두로 좀 설명 좀 해줘라. 우리 삼프로 그리고 중앙일보 구독자분들에게.
잘하셨습니다. 요거 저희가 읽으려면 또 머리 아프지 않습니까?
그렇죠. 그래서 저자 직강. 종종 이제 이렇게 흥미로운 눈에 띄는 데이터를 분석하거나 흐름을 했으면 앞으로도 저자 직강을 좀 마련해 보려고 합니다.
자,
시작해 볼까요? 사실 적잖이 보고서를 보고 놀랐습니다. 사실 2028년도까지 한 10배 정도의 매출액, 전체적인 생성형 AI 분야에서 매출액이 10배 정도 급증할 것이다 라는 구체적인 전망을 해서 그 내용이 좀 근거가 뭔지 궁금해서 좀 인터뷰를 요청했습니다.
So we do these forecasts are based on what we call bottoms up analysis. So we identify all the vendors that we think are relevant, and then we work with a few of our colleagues who help build these models and estimate the revenues of every single company. So most of these companies are privately held companies who don't disclose their revenues publicly. And then you have the large publicly traded companies who, for this, what generative AI is just a very small part of what they do. But we've been doing this a very long time, and the people in our team who build models for all kinds of markets, not just this one, know how to do this and have a specific methodology. And so what we identify 262 software vendors, and so there's different parts of the text generators segment, for instance, had the largest number. I think it's 105, and then there's about 20 of the foundation model companies, and then various different ones of the other segments like image and video and code. And so we think it's a highly defensible market forecast. It's not as some of the ones coming from some of our competition are kind of like it's $1 trillion market or something like that. We were like, how do you know that? I mean, it's very much say bottoms up, not top down. We don't just think it might be worth this and then let's multiply that by X. We really try and do the bottoms up analysis. And a lot of these companies we speak to them, and then what we also do is we take a representative sample of the revenue estimates and we test them with those companies themselves. So we'll say to them, we think you're worth, you're doing say $20 million a year in revenue. Is that accurate? And sometimes they won't say, they won't give us the actual number, but they'll say, oh, you're too low or you're too high. Or something like that. So we get kind of a steer from them. We say we've been doing these market forecasts as a company overall since about 2005. So we've kind of got a pretty good methodology for it.
예, 그럼 제가 이어서 좀 질문을 드리죠. 그렇게 시장이 커지는 가장 중요한 원동력이 어디에 있다고 생각하십니까?
So, the key points, I guess, are that we think the generative AI software market will grow by almost 10 times over the next 5 years. And so that is driven by the uptake of both by consumers and business of various generative AI tools, including text generators, image generators, video generators, audio, code, and then the foundation models underneath them. And then this is also driving a bigger ecosystem of technology evolution. So underneath all these, all the software become all the kind of infrastructure, so cloud and non-cloud infrastructure. And then above them are the kind of application software companies who might be using some of these tools to power their own applications. And so this generative AI segment kind of sits in between the infrastructure below and the applications above, and it drives, it's driving a lot of interest and a lot of business. But more importantly, I think from the way the generative AI as such changes the way that we as humans will interact with applications. And what I mean by that is that the key thing from generative AI and large language models in particular, which is kind of what the text generators are built of, is it enables a real natural language interface to any kind of application. So if you're talking, obviously we all know about chatbots and customer service bots and things like that. This will make those things work better, which a lot of them don't work very well. But it also enables people to write code by using natural language, or it enables them to write better natural language or produce images from text, all those kind of things that weren't possible before. So it opens up a lot of creativity amongst people who may not feel they're creative. It opens up the opportunity for people, say, to be coders who weren't previously coders, and write music and on all these kinds of things that we couldn't do before. So that's what I mean. It kind of changes the way we interact with applications.
자, 그렇더라면 닉, 이 다양한 그 생성형 AI 분야에서도 뭐 다양한 세그먼트가 있는 것 같더라고요. 보고서를 보니까. 그러면 가장 빠르게 성장하기 때문에 투자자들이 주목해야 될 분야가 어딜까요?
The segment that has the fastest growth rate is code generating. So we think that one has the potential to grow the fastest. We think code generators will grow by 73%, and that's the fastest growing segment, with image, video, audio, and the others down below that. In fact, text generation has the slowest, wasn't it? That has the slowest overall growth rate over the next 5 years. That's partly because there's a lot of companies already in it, and it's not well established in a sense, but there are a lot of companies in text generators, for instance, doing the same kind of thing. Code generation, we think, is a much smaller market at the moment, but we think it has the potential to have, show real growth, because it solves a real specific set of problems inside organizations and companies mainly. And one of the other things about code generation, which we think is in its favor, is that leaving generative AI to one side, there is already well-established software testing methodologies used in software development. So we all know how to, whether personally or not, we all know how software is tested before it's then deployed. The same thing can be applied to code generated by generative AI. So you might obviously hear some of this kind of scare stories about companies launching code straight into production from ChatGPT. That is if that ever happens, then that's pretty silly, because it doesn't need to happen like that. Because it's, software, whether it's written by you or me or a code or generative AI, needs to go through testing before it can be deployed into production. And so the fact that those methodologies already exist, I think, is in its favor. And we've already seen large software companies embracing generative AI and code generation, and I think we think it's a real got really strong possibilities. Plus, some of the problems it solves are very real, such as obviously the skills shortages in certain elements of software development, in particular in data science itself, but also in other specific languages, R and Python and things like that. Getting people who can actually code that very well is still hard. And also it helps with sort of legacy languages like COBOL. So languages that nobody really, nobody at university is going to be learning COBOL, and hasn't been for a very long time. And so, this is a way of resurrecting essentially those legacy languages where they're needed. So they're needed in companies that have mainframes that run old COBOL applications still need to be maintained and updated. And we think this generative AI code generation is a really good way of achieving that.
이 부분에 대해서는 이제 코드 생성,
네,
그 생성형 AI 가지고 컴퓨터 프로그램 소프트웨어를 짜는 그 만드는 개발 업무를 하나 봐요.
예.
그 코드 생성 분야가 사실은 가장 빠르게 성장할 것이다.
개발자 인건비를 바로 줄여주니까.
그러네요.
예, 그래서 그 분야가 제일 먼저 터질 거라는 거고. 제가 이어서 한번 해보죠. 닉, 그 인공지능을 실제로 어느 곳에 쓰면 뭐 비용이 세이브 될 것이다. 뭐 그런 정도일 것 같은데 일단은 뭔가 상업화되는, 즉 그 자체가 돈을 벌어들이는 그런 상업적인 제품이 생성형 인공지능을 바탕으로 만들어질 수 있다고 보십니까? 있다면 뭐가 어떤 식으로 팔 수 있게 될까요?
At the moment, you're right. There's a lot of experimenting going on. So we've all playing with ChatGPT and Google Bard and other ones like that. But we've already seen quite a lot of very specific use cases. So if you think of an area like contact centers, so we have got people interacting, whether they are on the phone or they're interacting with some sort of chat interface. Generating automated responses to people and doing it better than they currently can is a key one. So that's a large efficiency gain. But also when you get in a kind of contact center situation where, for instance, you have a complex query and it gets elevated to a person, and that person is, you and I are talking to each other, and I'm the customer service rep and you're the customer, and you have a complex query. It can save an and we have all this discussion and it's all written down. It's quite hard for somebody else to have to read all of that. Now, generative AI can easily summarize that complex interaction to say that we've had over 15 minutes and then summarize that down to one paragraph. So all the other people who are working in the contact center can solve that similar problem in an efficient way. And we've seen, there's obviously a lot of use cases in marketing and writing marketing collateral, and in sales, writing better emails and subject lines and things like that to encourage people to open emails or interact with marketing collateral. In financial services, we've seen a lot. So there's a lot of summarization of complex financial reports and generating what they call pitch books in investment banking. So again, these are kind of templates that these banks have for generating content, and this can fit within those templates and do it semi-automatically. There's also elements such as in human resources, in HR automation. So large companies have complicated and complex HR systems, and they employ a lot of people in the HR departments, but there's still a lot of complexity. So for instance, opening a job opportunity or job requisition, as they call them, it can be a very multi-stage process involving a lot of people. I've already seen kind of examples of automation where you're presented with a kind of chat interface and say, I want to open a job position in Seoul. And, it takes you to exactly the right place in the process. Now that sounds, simple, and it should be the way it always works, but it just isn't the way it works in large companies. And so there's lots of examples like that. Then there's all the code generation opportunities. And the ability, for instance, for media companies to automatically generate commentary on old videos and stuff like that. So if you've got the old golf or whatever it might be, I think it's a case of, I always think, this is going to automate tasks. I don't think it's going to take away lots of people's jobs. It's going to augment. We go through these stages over and over again, don't we, with automation, where people start to get paranoid about their jobs. I mean, my job is to do research and write, and produce reports. But I still think it's, so you could say it could be my job as well. But I think it augments us to do our jobs more efficiently. And I think that's the overall biggest opportunity that AI gives us, is that augmentation. And I think, there's a lot of use of the word, Microsoft uses the word Copilot for a lot of its products. And that's a good, it's a good analogy, really. It's somebody sitting alongside us. If you're the captain, and there's a co-pilot, and they're there to help you, make decisions or provide you with information, prompt you, those kinds of things. And I think that's a very good analogy for how this will work.
그러니까 사실 고객들이 이 전화해서 상투적으로 물어본 것은 궁금증 거의 비슷하지 않습니까?
네, 예.
거기에 대한 답변. 그게 이제 그래서 무슨 뭐 흔히 말하는 그 전화 상담사라 그럽니까?
예.
그 뭐라 그러죠? 나 갑자기 용어가
콜센터.
콜센터. 콜센터를
대체할 수 있을 테니까요.
대체할 수 있다. 듣다 보니까 사실 그 늘 AI와 관련돼서 뭔 얘기를 할 때마다 빼놓을 수 없는 게 일자리입니다. 듣다 보니까 뭐 개발자들도 줄어들 것 같고요. 그 다음에 콜센터에서 상담사들도 자리도 줄어들 것 같고. 또 말씀을 듣다 보니까 기자인 글을 쓰는 기자인 저 직업도 좀 위태위태해 보입니다. 어떻게 뭐 장래 직업이 실제로 그렇게 생성형 AI 때문에 많이 사라질까요? 어떨까요?
A lot of the text generating stuff is, enabling people to write blog posts and stories and any kind of poetry and plays and things like that. And obviously, essays. And we have to be careful here, obviously, because academic essays, etc. We've all been through education. So there is a lot of opportunity there. There is caution in some of that, obviously, because then it's a question of, who is the owner of that creative of that output? But there's a lot of opportunity in creative amongst creative professionals, so photographers, video makers, artists of all kinds, to augment what they do, and with generative AI. So there's a lot of those kind of B2C applications, and I guess there's also going to be where the way that we shop online and the interactivity of that process will change. Largely through customer service. So again, it's probably B2B to C. So it's the way our chatbots work with us and actually help us rather than frustrate us, which most of them do at the moment. So any whether it's our banks or our the shops we shop at, or people who service our cars or whatever it might be, all of those kind of applications are going to be enhanced with generative AI. The more specific things around the kind of creative professionals, that's a really a lot of early interest levels in that, and a lot of it is playing around. I mean, I play, we've all done it, play with Midjourney and those other applications, and it's fun, especially if you're not like me. I can't draw or paint or anything like that. I can play music, but I'm not that kind of artist, and it's liberating to be able to create things from text prompts, and it's interesting. I mean, it's not going to be my job.
생성형 AI가 훌륭한 생산성을 높여주는 그런
도구로 나를 대체하기보다는 나를 도와주는 쪽으로 진화할 가능성이 높다. 닉, 연구를 해보셨을 테니까 이 생성형 AI 분야에서 가장 경쟁력이 뛰어난 나라는 어디로 생각되시던가요?
We know. I think there was definitely a trend. Like there was quite a few image generation companies in Asia. I can't remember specifically Korea. That are the powerhouses of this. Are the US obviously is the main one, because not only does it have a lot of the companies like the text generators and stuff, but it also has the cloud companies. And while it's not all about cloud, a lot of the early stuff is about cloud, and so it's you see that, but there's a lot of on the kind of foundation model side of the things that's actually quite diverse. So you have companies like Cohere, which is in Canada. These are all foundation model companies. So Cohere is in Canada, AI21 Labs is in Israel, as a company called Aleph Alpha, which is in Germany. There's Stability, which does stable diffusion, which is in the UK. So there's there's not many foundation model companies around. And within that group is actually quite diverse, and so that's somewhat unusual, I guess. There's a company, there's Deep Brain, which is in Korea. I spoke to them actually a few weeks ago. Video generation space. There's a Gen AI, and there's another called Design Novel, which is in text and image generation. They're South Korean companies in the model. And so, but overall, at the moment, it is, it's US dominated with our knowledge for it. We don't know the Chinese market very well, for instance. That's quite hard to figure out what's going on there in terms of this area. But it's fairly, it's fairly diverse within certain elements like foundation models. And again, I'm sure there's other companies around that we haven't got in there. There definitely are. I mean, it's not always easy to find everybody, but it's it's going to be dominated by the US at the moment, with pockets in Europe and pockets in Asia Pacific where there's going to be interest, in Middle East and Africa, I'm sure as well eventually. Just not yet so much.
뭐 제가 듣기로는 생성형 AI 분야에서는 한국도 상당히 그 메이저급이라고 들었습니다. 한국의 그 생성형 AI의 경쟁력 애널리스트 눈에 어떻게 비치시는지요?
Don't know. I've never been to South Korea. I don't know the market that well. I mean, but I know, as an advanced society with highly educated people in it, it should be in pretty good position. A lot of it is to do initially with there's a couple of things that there's a couple of characteristics of successful markets in these kind of areas of like kind of high performance computing and AI. They need to have the compute infrastructure available. So from cloud companies usually, which I know South Korea does. Then you need to have the investment community who are prepared to invest in the companies and take risks. And then you need to have the skills. So the people who understand how to build and train models. That's the skill I mean, rather, so have the data science skills to be able to build and train those models and then keep them up to date. So it's those kind of three elements of compute, of investment and skills. And from what I know, I mean, South Korea should be fairly well placed in that regard. And, so it is, it should be in a pretty good position. I wouldn't claim to know the details of, say, of your VC, your venture capital community or anything. I'm sure you know it much better than I ever will. But those would be the three elements I would look at for determining success.
네, 마지막으로 이 인공지능이 투자에 어떻게 활용될지가 그게 투자자들의 가장 큰 관심인데, 회사 하나를 좀 이른바 소개를 해주실 수 있겠습니까? 투자자 관점에서 중요한 경쟁력이 꽤 있다고 생각되는 생성형 인공지능 관련 업체 어디일까요?
You mean compared to like car companies in the past and electronics like Samsung? It could be. I mean, it's hard to see it becoming as big as say Samsung or something like that. That's pretty difficult to see. I mean, it's difficult because it's an interesting question because I get asked this quite a lot. Where will the value accrue to which companies will benefit the most from this? And at the moment where we're sitting, with this stage and early in the market, it looks like the hyperscale cloud vendors look like the ones that are going to, gather most of the value to them. There will be some of these specialists like text generators or image generators. Some of those will build into large companies. There won't be many. But some of those will become large companies. Whether it becomes, I think AI in general is an enabling technology. It's not an end in itself. So I've thought about this a lot. There aren't really any massive pure play AI companies around that don't exist. So you look at a company like Meta, that's a social media company that could not do what it does without advanced AI. But it's not its primary job is being a social media company. And so, you don't really see, there isn't a multi-billion-dollar or, whatever currency version of a massive AI company. There's social media companies, there's media companies, there's software companies, there's cloud companies, there's networking companies, there's all those kind of things that use AI. So I think people shouldn't look to generative AI to say any company, any country in the world is going to build a massive specific generative AI economy. They're going to build an economy that is enabled by AI and now by generative AI, and that's going to lift up everything.
다양한 분야의 기업들을 소개를 좀 해주시는
뭐 특정 기업을 애널리스트라서 특정 기업을 언급하기는 그렇습니다만은
이분들 요령인 것 같아요. 그러니까 종목 하나 찍어달라고 하면 굉장히 넓은 범위의 종목들을 그냥 줄줄이 이야기해서 이야기 안 해준 건 아닌데 해준 보람이 없도록 만드는.
그 생성형 AI가 이제 광범위하기 때문에 그 나름대로 생태계가 형성이 될 텐데. 그 생태계가 구축이 되는 순간 세상은 많이 바뀌어 있을 것이다. 그렇게 결론을 내렸습니다.
그렇군요. 자, 오늘 인터뷰는 여기서 마무리하겠습니다. 인공지능과 관련한 좋은 인사이트 전해주셔서 고맙습니다.
감사합니다.
네, 이렇게 보고서와 관련해서 이렇게 인터뷰를 해도 굉장히 유익하네요.
그렇죠. 네. 앞으로 사실 좀 그러니까 우리가 이제 한국 미디어에서도 많이 인용보도 하지 않습니까? 외신에도 많이 인용보. 저자의 직강을 통해서 한번 바로바로 물어보려고 합니다.
네, 좋은 보고서들은 그렇게 좀 섭외를 해주시면
예, 그렇게 하겠습니다.
감사하겠습니다.
예.
저희가 뭐 영어를 못해서가 아니라 그냥 시간이 좀 없다 보니 그렇기도 하고
네.
또 뭐 어떻게 생긴 분이 쓴 보고서인지도 궁금하니까요.
제가 생성형 AI 역할을 하면서 우리 구독자분들의 시간을 좀 정리해드리겠습니다.
고맙습니다. 예, 저희는 그래서 그런 좋은 인터뷰들 많이 만들어 드리겠습니다. 예.
감사합니다.
고맙습니다.
예.